Welcome back. Today, why you need to argue better instead of more. We need to have more quality when we argue or when we have a disagreement, especially in a relationship, and definitely early on when we're dating. Now, most people think that arguments are a sign that something is wrong in a relationship. That if you're arguing, it means you're incompatible. It means you're immature or failing somehow. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's great if you have to argue every day in a relationship. I think then we're talking about a problem. But every now and again, there should be some disagreement. And that has everything to do with, you being you being real, her being her. The real problem in most relationships isn't that people argue too much. It's that when they argue badly, or they don't argue at all. Avoiding arguments it doesn't create harmony, it creates distance, really. When two people don't argue, what that usually means is that they don't express disagreement, or they don't express it clearly. They just swallow things. They let small frustrations slide. And we talked about this in previous episodes. We don't let shit slide. We talk about it, we confront it in a normal, mature way, of course. So that's what people do. They let the small frustrations slide. They tell themselves it's not worth bringing up. And over time, those unspoken issues, they don't disappear. What happens is they stack. And that's how resentment is built, quietly. A healthy relationship isn't one without conflict. There's always going to be conflict. It's a healthy relationship is one where conflict is handled cleanly, where you and her can disagree without trying to punish or trying to control or trying to win something. Here's a common example. Something bothers you. Maybe she keeps canceling plans or she keeps interrupting you, or maybe, she dismisses something that you care about or that matters to you. Instead of addressing it directly, you let it go because, you want to stay polite and you tell yourself, I'm being the bigger person here. I'm being mature. I'll let it go. But what really happens is that your tone changes eventually. You become shorter and colder, less present, and she will feel that shift eventually, even if she doesn't know why it's happening. And let's be honest, guys, that's not peace. You don't want to be in a relationship. You don't want to be with a woman where that is the vibe, where that is how you really feel. That's avoidance. And as a real guy, you should step up and say what you think. Good arguments do the exact opposite. They bring things in the open early. Like I said, we don't let things slide. We don't need to make a big deal out of everything, but we do need to address it early on. If you have an issue, you tell it. You tell her. And when we bring things in the open early, then the issue is still small and manageable, and there's time to do something with it before everything blows up. And it sounds less like accusations and more like getting clarity. Bad arguments sound like this. You always do this. You never listen. Why are you like this? You know exactly what I'm talking about. That's what it sounds like. A good argument sounds something along the lines of, when you do this, it affects me this way. Whenever you're not listening, I feel some type of way about it. That is a good argument because you're telling what is happening, you say what is happening, and you're explaining what that does to you. You help her understand how that's affecting you. And she should do the same thing. One is about winning, and the other one is about understanding. We want the one where we understand each other better. Another mistake that people make is arguing to prove a point instead of solving a problem. And I've been there many, many times. And to be honest, I do this myself every now and again. Your ego jumps in. I will not lose this argument. And suddenly it's not about the issue anymore. It's about being right. And once that happens, she's not listening, you're not listening. You're just waiting for your turn to talk. And those arguments lead to nowhere, maybe a big fight. Better arguments are much slower, they're calmer and more focused. They stick to the issue at hand. And they leave room for her, but also for you to respond without feeling attacked. That's super important. We are clear with our message, but we should be soft or kind to the person. We should make our point clear. We should be really tough on the message, what we're trying to say. We should be soft and gentle and kind to the person, whether it is a woman or a man, it doesn't matter. We should be clear with the message and kind to the person. Because if we don't, then we're being really hard on the person. We're attacking the person. We want to attack the message. And here's the part most people miss. Arguments don't weaken attraction in relationship, at least when they're done right. They actually strengthen trust. Here's how it works. When someone sees that you can disagree without exploding, without shutting down, without letting your emotions take over, you as a guy feel safer to be real with. And it also allows room for her to be honest with you. It allows room for her to actually tell you what's on her mind. Because if you say, well, I want you to tell me what's going on, and she tells you and you explode, she will never tell you anything again. So if she feels safe around you because you're being real and you're being mature about having a disagreement, she will open up, she will trust you, she feels safer, and that's attractive. It applies in dating as well. Early on, many guys try to be endlessly agreeable. I've had this discussion with one of my dates literally last week, and she was sick of guys just being super agreeable. When she asked a guy, we were talking about previous dates, and she asked a guy, well, what do you want out of life? And he responded with, I want a big house and this and that. And then he said, well, what do you want? And she said, well, I just want a small cottage, maybe some chickens and a horse in the garden and whatnot. And he instantly goes, yeah, I want the same thing. And she was giving me some of these examples. And she told me she was sick of guys being just extremely agreeable, being pushovers on date one and date two. So, just to drive that point home, early on, many guys try to be extremely agreeable, and it's not a good thing. It doesn't help you. Guys avoid disagreement because they're afraid of rocking the boat, really, and that often backfires. Without friction, there's no depth. Without honesty, there's no real connection. You have to be real with people. You have to be real with a woman. You have to tell her, this is what I want, this is what I like. I didn't appreciate this. I want you to stop doing that, and vice versa. This agreement handled well signals confidence. It says, look, I respect myself, and I respect you enough to be honest with you. The goal of an argument isn't to dominate the other one, it's not to score points, even though if we handle it wrong, that's the direction it goes in. A argument, the goal of it should be to align, to understand where the disconnect is, and to decide whether we can resolve it. And sometimes a good argument reveals something important, that maybe you both want different things, maybe you value different things, or you communicate differently. That's not failure, but it is definitely clarity. Relationships don't break because people argue. They break because things go unspoken for too long, and when we argue like shit. So, if your relationship keeps feeling tense, distant, or emotionally flat, it might not be because there's too much conflict. It might be because there isn't enough honest, well handled disagreement. You should learn to argue better, not louder, not longer, not more often, just better. Be clear, be precise about what you want, be honest. Healthy relationships aren't built on silence, they're built on honest conversations that don't turn into battles. So argue better and everything else will get easier. I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Goodbye.